Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences, raw conversations, one destination for it all. E360 TV.
Operate out of your dreams and your vision and not other people's expectation. Having breast cancer wasn't my choice, but the decision to live healthy so that I could stand before you here today, that's choice. You can choose this very moment to change your life from every perspective.
Tracy Randolph was our speaker. She came back because so many people liked her first presentation. I was one of those people that joined her fitness group, and it made me a better leader.
I grew up in a community, but they had limiting beliefs on what a little black girl could do. Everything that you do in this life is a choice. I choose to live healthy. I choose to change my mindset. I choose to be everything that I dreamed of because I choose faith and I choose me. Live healthy, be everything that you can be today. Choose yourself.
You're watching The Whole Living Show on Trajectory TV.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Whole Living Show. I am so glad that you are here because tonight is going to be an absolutely amazing show. There's going to be so much energy in the room. I don't know if you're going to be able to stand it, but we're bringing you some good stuff. But before we get started and before I introduce my amazing guest, I wanted to share something with you because you know what we do here on The Whole Living Show. We have to give the information. And as always, I will say to you, go out there and do your own research. You know, pay attention to the things that are being reported, but do your own research because you have to be able to make choices for yourself. So I'm going to share with you just some concerns that I'm seeing online and on social media that people are reporting in regards to the vaccinations. And I know this is a big topic now. Last week, I reported to you that, you know, RFK has been approved as our health secretary, right? So I want you to understand that, you know, there has been a lot of controversy around his appointment and his concern about vaccinations and the things that he's been questioning in regards to vaccinations. So this is a big issue right now, and people are definitely reporting it on social media, their concerns about it now, and people are starting to look into this a little bit more. So let me present my screen to you, and I'm going to share this with you. And I have two separate videos that I want to show. And then we're just going to have a little conversation about this. But again, as always, I want you to make sure that you're going out there and you're doing your own research. So here, let's share this. All right, here we go.
To create long-term spike protein production that increases over time. The scientists warned that the COVID mRNA vaccines alter T-cell immunophenotypes, which triggers VADES. The study was led by Bornali Bhattacharya. So not only were we collectively forced to take an experimental vaccine or risk losing our jobs, we were lied to about it. It didn't stop you from contracting or transmitting the virus. It wasn't safe. It caused heart issues and blood clots, autoimmune disorders. We were censored when we questioned the madness. And now we find out that the mRNA jab causes VADES in many people. This is one of the most egregious scandals in American history. Kash Patel's first order of business at the FBI should be throwing in prison every single person involved in this crime against humanity. Bombshell new study from Yale Medical School finds people suffering from long COVID are actually suffering from mRNA vaccine injury. As if that's bad enough, it's worse than that. These people are suffering from what's called vaccine-induced AIDS. It's called VADES. This is from Slay News. Leading scientists from the world.
And I'm going to stop it there. I just wanted you to actually hear the beginning of that. So listen, whatever your opinion is, whatever the young lady who reported this research, she gave you, Yale University. So you would have to go out and look for this on your own to make sure that you agree or disagree with what's being reported, right? The science is the science, right? So take a look at that. This was done by Slay News, as she said. So just make sure that you're taking a look. But it is alarming and it is concerning. And there have been reports in regards to some of the issues that have happened as a result of people taking the vaccinations around the coronavirus. And there have been, I want to say, and I don't know the exact number, but there are multiples. I won't say the exact number, but there are multiple shots, right? There were the initial 2 shots, and then there were booster shots that came after that, and they continue. So you have to do your research before you decide to either take the first 2, if you haven't done so already, or if you're going to get the boosters. Make sure that you pay attention to what's happening, what's being done, what's included in the vaccinations, because you can actually go out there and get the ingredients that are in the vaccinations. That's something that I did when they first introduced them. The information is available to you online. You can go right to Pfizer and Moderna and you can get those ingredients that are included in the vaccination. So just do your homework around this. And they have been reporting long COVID, and people have been saying that they've been suffering from COVID either over and over again or just extensively where it doesn't stop. So, you want to make sure that you're doing your research here. And if you decide to take the vaccination, that is up to you. You have autonomy over your own body and you can make your own decision, but do that research. And then I wanted to give you another one in regards to some children's vaccinations also, so you can do your research, particularly if you are, a pregnant woman who is, going to have a baby soon, and you want to know what the vaccinations are at birth and then at each stage of your child's life, because here in the United States, it is required that the children have vaccinations to go to school. So here's another report, and I'm going to share this one as well.
Sexually transmitted disease, or shared by heroin users, so that there's no reason a day 1 old baby should have to get it. Let me show you. I got it blown up for myself so I could actually read it. You can go to FDA approved vaccines. Just Google it, and every single vaccine in our program pops up. This is how easy your investigation can begin. And then click on whatever vaccine on the childhood schedule you're curious about, and then open up the vaccine insert. 6.1, every single time, this is how this works. At 6.1, the clinical trial experience is written down. This is what they're telling you they did to prove the safety of a vaccine. There's only one way to prove safety, by the way. You have to have a safety baseline. In high school, you should have learned about the double-blind placebo trial. You have to have one group getting the product and one group getting a placebo that doesn't affect the human body in any way. And then we have them both. We track them, usually for years when it comes to cancer drugs. And it doesn't matter if you're dying of cancer. We're not going to let you trial that drug until we've proven it safe. Years we followed them. How long did we follow the hepatitis B vaccine trial group? It says right here, 6.1 clinical trials. In 3 clinical studies, 434 doses of Recombavax HB, you can look that one up, 5 micrograms were administered to 147 healthy infants and children up to 10 years of age, who were monitored for 5 days after each dose. Injection site reactions and systemic adverse reaction were reported 5 days. A 5-day safety trial with no placebo group. Look it up. It's there. Not misinformation, written by the drug manufacturer. I could do this with every single vaccine. Because of Donald Trump, we had a meeting at the NIH that I went to with Robert Kennedy Jr. when he was first president. And we said, why in all of these can we not find a single placebo trial of any of the childhood vaccines? Are you not doing placebo trials and establishing safety the way every other drug is established? Or are you just not publishing those trials? There was silence in the room, and finally Tony Fauci admitted, we don't do placebo trials on vaccines because it would be unethical. Now,
So, okay, we're not here to stir up controversy, but we're here to give you information. So I just wanted to mention that. I like the fact that, you know, in both cases, they are giving you some information on where you can go. If you can dig deeper, I would implore you to do that as well. Because, you know, social media, people are sharing some of their opinions. It may be some of their very own research. You want to make sure that you're going out to do the research on your own as well. Okay. But I wanted to give you that information. There are some concerns out there, enough for us to take a look, right? Particularly if this is affecting you, if you have young children, if you have even older children, because here, again, you know, I'm a mom here in the States. Kids have to take vaccinations throughout the course of at least up to high school. So, you know, I'm imploring you to just go out, take a look, you know, look at the ingredients in these vaccines, check out the research, the clinical trials. It's all published. He gave you the information there. You can go to FDA, Google, actually do the research there, FDA approved vaccines, and you can take a look at the vaccinations and whether or not you want to actually give them to your children. So just wanted to mention that as well. But for everyone out there, I have an amazing guest backstage. She is this beautiful woman that I met through my coach, Dr. Lauren Harris. And instantly, I'm like, I love your energy when we got on a Zoom. I mean, you could just feel her energy through the screen. And I absolutely love her. She's going to be, I didn't say this to her, but I'm telling you now, she's a part of my family now. But she's just a beautiful person. So let me tell you about Kristina Driskill. Kristina is an international opera singer, that blew my mind, turned transformational coach and business consultant. Her lighthearted yet deeply impactful approach, combined with her signature conscious reality method, has empowered entrepreneurs and creators to enjoy the process of running their businesses with ease, fun, and flow since 2007. And she is definitely a woman that is in flow. It's all over her. Chris's work focused on self-sabotage is backed by the science and evidence-based research of positive intelligence. And we're going to ask her what she thinks about what we just played, because you can tell here by her bio that she does the work, she does the research. She is also certified in business coaching, money mindset coaching, and serves as Gene Key's guide, in addition to holding a certification in social emotional arts from UCLA's Department of Integrative Medicine and a doctorate from West Virginia University. When not inspiring her clients' transformations, she can be found communing with wild animals or being herded by her overly time-conscious mini Aussie, Jasper. So let's give her a virtual round of applause and bring her in the room. Woo, woo.
did such a good job reading that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It wasn't hard. I love everything about your bio. And I wanted to mention something here because you talk about communing with the wild. And I know you told me a little bit about where you are and where you live. And I'm just so impressed by that. So I want you to talk a little bit about like just kind of why you decided to move to like a mountainous area.
Well, it's kind of a roundabout story. When I was 5, my parents decided, I lived in Virginia at the time, my parents decided to build a house in the woods. And so I had this experience when I was young, and then we lived there for 6 months, and then my dad got transferred. So we didn't live there very long, but it was a very magical experience. And then we moved into another place. We moved to Texas, and we lived in a space that was also very wooded. There weren't, at the time, there were not very many houses in that area. So there was a lot of places that you could explore outside as well. And that also was a really magical experience. However, that entire time growing up and going toward, my time in college, I always wanted to live in a big city. So I had that experience. I was like, I want to go live in a big city. I want to go do these kinds of things. No one in my family background is connected with opera or classical music whatsoever. So that was, was quite a shock to my parents. But so when I went to do that, and I went and lived in cities, and I had that kind of life, I ended up after many years of traveling and being in different places in Los Angeles. And, it got to a certain point where I realized, you know what? I would really love to go back to that environment where that kind of sense of connection with nature and the peace that you experience from that environment is part of my daily living. And I didn't have that in a city environment like I wanted to. You could go and visit places, but I wanted that to be my everyday.
Yeah.
So just the way the circumstances worked out, I got to a certain point in my work where I felt very, very called to shift into this kind of transformational work for people. I was seeing it in my work, not only as a performer, but I also taught at a university for almost a decade. And I would see that in my students, that through working through whatever lifted them up and empowered them up as a person was actually contributing to their success as a singer. So it wasn't just let's work on your voice. That's all well and good, but if there's stuff going on that's creating internal conflict, nothing is more obvious than the voice when it comes to this. It shows everything. So we took a holistic approach to that. We talked about being okay with making mistakes, about finding the joy and the exploration of the work rather than just the outcome, which so many industries point to, and that's a big one. The performance, the final picture, the perfect end result, and focusing on that was causing so much stress and anxiety that people weren't enjoying the other 95% of life, which is process, right? So I started noticing just how meaningful that work was to the group of people I was working with. And I decided, you know what, I want to focus on that work completely. That's really what I want to do. I want to create a bigger ripple effect in that respect. So I quit my jobs, and my now husband and I gutted his production truck. He was a director of photography for film and television, and we turned it into an RV and got in it and left.
Yeah. Ooh.
So yeah, I ended up buying a house out here in the woods, and I hang out with wild animals every day. They come up to the house and just hang out. It's very surreal and magical and special. So to me, it sounds very normal now after doing that for 10 years. And people are always surprised, when I talk about it. But it was, as you said, in that gorgeous intro video that showed just a tidbit of you and your energy and your work. It is a choice. Yeah. You get to choose how you want to create your life. And I made a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So to transition just a little bit because of where you are, and I know some people are probably thinking, right, that's just a bold move, you know, it's a bold move to move. Yeah. Yeah. And to think about, you know, kind of your story and then how you help people, right? Because the title of today's show is The Inner Judge, right? And the sneaky ways that we sabotage ourselves.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking about that person who's probably thinking like, how in the world did you do that? You know, like I could never make that transition. It's too scary. You know, whatever their reasons are. So let's transition a little bit and talk to that person that, you know, wants to make a choice, but is so afraid to do so.
Sure. You know, we wanted to talk kind of about the inner judge today and about how that ties into these kinds of choices that we make. And the inner judge really is all about self-sabotage. This is the key factor that creates blame, shame, guilt, stress, anxiety, frustration, jealousy, sadness for us, because it all stems, all those things stem from fear. It all stems from some form of fear, no matter what it is. We can draw it back to that every single time, no matter what the issue is. So, you know, the judge that we have inside us, and we all have this. This is not well, some people have an inner judge and some people don't. We all have an inner judge, and it began in childhood. This is something that started when we were very, very young, and it was done as a means of survival. So our judge was developed to try to tell us how to discern bad from good. And we were reinforced in this way by everything around us. Our parents told us what was good, what was bad, what we did that was bad, what we did that was good, if we were bad or good. Teachers, community members, things on television, siblings, other children reinforce this message of bad and good. You can even hear it in the videos you played. You were mentioning, you know, talking about, you know, making informed decisions and learning information. You can hear that energy of either frustration, anger, promoting fear, blaming, judgment. You can hear all of that in the energy. And this is very normal. We all know this as being very normal as a part of our society today. And so when we want to do something for ourselves, when we have a dream, when we have a desire that we want to move toward, and in our minds it sounds very exciting, here comes the judge. And the judge is here to save you, to protect you, right? Because this is what it did as a child. It told you, hey, don't do that. You're going to get in trouble. Hey, don't do that. Kids will make fun of you. Hey, don't be like that. People may not accept you. And so it learned how to tell you that's bad. That's bad. Oh, do these things. These are good things. That's bad. And to point out the bad things and to make sure you knew about them. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Because it wanted to protect you. So we have to keep that in mind. It's very easy to get frustrated with the judge. Once we start to learn about that, we don't want to do that anymore. It's easy to get frustrated, but we have to remember getting frustrated is just another form of the judge. Yeah. So we want to keep that in perspective and realize that that's going to try to come in. That's normal.
And you talked about you. It just hit me like when you were talking about like it started from, you know, when we were young, right? And all these things, this is what I saw, like, as you were talking, like just all these things, like kind of coming at, like, I just saw like things and coming at me, you know, as you're speaking, because we don't stop to really realize like all of the things that put all of those ideas in our head, right? You talked about the TV shows and the parents and, you know, other extended members of your community. And like all these things are coming at us at one time and it just becomes our normal, right?
Yeah,
without us even
there's,
really thinking about it.
I can't remember what the statistic is, but there's
Mhm.
something to the effect of tens of thousands, if
Mhm.
not more, of stimuli coming into our minds a day.
Yeah.
And a child's mind doesn't necessarily know how to discern what all of those things are.
Yeah.
The child is just seeing and listening and hearing and making their own assumptions about what those things mean, or being told what those things mean. I'll give you an example. You know, for a lot of people, kind of having a harsh judge, or, you know, a hyperachiever mentality or a pleaser mentality, which are also just kind of accomplice saboteurs to our judge over here, right? You know, can come from different places, but people tend to say, oh, it was because of my parents, or, oh, it was because of this teacher, or, oh, this is where that came from. That wasn't the case for me. I was always that person. From day one, I had to do things right. I had to do them well. I had to do them at the highest level. No one told me, you know, you're never going to get anywhere if you don't. That didn't happen for me. So I started thinking about, when I came into this body of work and started really diving deeply into it, I started getting curious about that. Where did that come from? And what I realized was that my best guess was that as a child, I was given lots of praise, lots of love, lots of acceptance and approval for all these wonderful things I was doing, which there's nothing wrong with that. But in my little child mind, what I must have thought was, oh, if I get love, if I get acceptance and approval for doing this, I bet I could get more love, more acceptance, approval if I did it perfectly, if I did it even better, right? And because acceptance, approval is very, deeply tied to our survival brain, you know, and that part of our DNA that says, hey, your whole point is to stay alive here. Try to work on that, then that kind of message became a belief that I had as a child. Not even, of course, knowing that I had that conversation. It was all on an unconscious level. And that started that need for perfectionism in me very early on in my life. Like I said, no one ever gave me that message. No one told me I needed to be like that. No one tried to push me. That came from me just seeing in the world. So this is what happens to us as children. We don't even realize the messages that we're picking up. We don't realize the beliefs that we're adopting them. Some of them are obvious and conscious, but so many of them are unconscious. And then as we grow up, we continue to reinforce them because they were for survival, right? So if you want to stay alive, hey, do this, right? So there's nothing wrong with striving for excellence. There's nothing wrong with being meticulous. There's nothing wrong with having attention to detail. There's nothing wrong with doing things at a very high level. However, our self-sabotage will come in there and tell us, if you don't, you're a failure, you're a loser, you're not good enough, no one will ever love you. And it uses and abuses this wonderful skill of talent, excellence, detail-minded work. And makes us feel like it's something to hold over our heads, threaten ourselves with. And the threat is lack of love, lack of acceptance, approval, lack of getting jobs, lack of whatever it is. And so again, it's a fear-based, it stemmed from fear, even though if you didn't go through that process, you would never know that. Yeah.
And isn't it interesting? And I just, in your professional opinion here too, like, is it that somewhat like someone is always looking for someone else to please, right? Because you need to be perfect. You need to do well. You need somebody to give you the praise too behind whatever that is you're feeling with your inner judge, where you need to please. But are they always looking for the next person and the next person to please? Like it could be, parents, and then it could be, I don't know, somewhere in your community at your church, and then it could be like your job, or, you know what I mean? Is it always that they're looking for someone, or I don't know if it's a something, but definitely someone, right, to please?
Yeah, the pleaser is another one of these accomplice saboteurs. So we all have these, but to varying degrees, right? So for some people, this may not be an issue at all. For other people, it may be the top issue, where they kind of bend themselves into whatever shape or whatever situation or whatever belief would be approved of by someone else. So if pleaser was developed in you very strongly as a child, in other words, perhaps you did something that pleased mom or dad or grandma, you know, and you noticed, oh, when she's happy, my life is better. Right. Or maybe it was an abusive parent in the home, and as long as you didn't do anything wrong, you were safe. So we developed these beliefs that my job is to make sure everybody else is happy. Don't worry about me. You know, it's my job to make sure everybody else is okay. So it's kind of, in that particular respect, it's not necessarily person to person to person, although it could be. It's anybody.
Yeah.
And typically the higher the stakes, perhaps the more that comes out. So for example, if I want to make sure that I keep my job, here's my survivor brain, need to keep my job, then, you know, perhaps one of the top people on my pleaser list is going to be my boss. I want to, you know, I'm going to do extra work. I'm going to make sure they like my stuff. I'm going to ask them if they think it's okay, which ironically has the opposite effect. Right. It comes across as not displaying leadership, not having confidence in one's own work, you know, not believing in one's own talent. But that's not what's going on in the brain. The brain is saying, I need this person to say this is good. I need this person to say this is okay. I need this person to approve. Right. And so this is one of the ways, you know, that self-sabotage can show up. Like we're talking about the other one, that hyperachiever coming up saying, I need to do more work. It has to be better, more, better, more, better. You know, oh, I did something well, great, but fine, that's over with. Now it has to be more. Never celebrating, never taking the time to appreciate, because it's almost like filling a bottomless pit. You know, that need to have something out there tell me that I'm successful, that I'm doing well. And so
I have a question, because oftentimes, like, the way people live, right, and how they learn how to live, you know, throughout their life, how do they identify, how do you help people identify their saboteur? Well, and I know they could have several, right?
We all do. We all do. You know, I mean, I'll give you my list. You know, you can sign up behind me. It's, you know, it's really not whether we have saboteurs or not. Saboteur is a universal archetype. We all have aspects of this. We all have a judge. We all have accomplice saboteurs. It's just to what degree and when they show up. But as far as, you know, identifying them and doing something with them, it's really about starting to become aware of, when do I feel negative emotions? That is the number one way to know whether or not you are in a mode of self-sabotage or not. Now, people always say, hey, well, aren't negative emotions bad? Like, don't don't you need those? Hello. How else would you know things were, wrong, or you want to change things? And the answer is yes, of course. Every single emotion is valid. Every single emotion is helpful and useful. However, it's very akin to the analogy that Shirzad Shamin of Positive Intelligence always uses, is the hand on the hot stove, right? You put your hand on a hot stove, you want a message to go from your hand to your brain to say, hey, bad idea, that's going to hurt you. Take your hand off of there, right? And so when we put our hand on a hot stove, we feel that, we go, oh, and we take it away immediately. That's a survival instinct, take that away, that's going to hurt you. So when we experience a negative emotion, that's our mind's way of saying, hey, something's not quite right. Something's off here. And so our job at that point should be to take our hand off of the hot stove and then shift over to thinking about it in a different way. But what typically happens, because we build up this judge persona, we build up this as a skill for decades coming from childhood. is that we feel that negative emotion and then we want to stay in it and we want to feel it some more. And then we get more angry or more sad or more frustrated or more jealous. We call people up so they can reinforce it with us. We get on the news like we saw and try to rile people up, you know, to try to get that energy staying in that space, you know, and I won't get into why the news does this. Obviously the news does this because if they don't, you're not going to watch them.
Right.
So there's a little ulterior motive there as far as, you know, I want to make sure I sensationalize, you know, in order to make sure I maintain viewership. So that's a little naughty, but
isn't that just this much larger problem on a larger scale, right? But because we're used to operating in that mode, right? Is why these things exist in that way.
Correct. Well, and they know it works because of mirror neurons and because of the way our brains work. When you are in a stage of self-sabotage, meaning you are angry, you are frustrated, you are anxious and worried, when you project that out, other people's saboteurs tend to react and respond to that in some way. So what we end up doing is creating a ripple effect in that way. So for example, if I'm like, Tracy, what's wrong with you? Why did you come in here like that and talk to me like that? You would not be like, oh, wow, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. Most of the time you'd be like, why are you talking to me like that? You come back because you felt that saboteur energy coming toward you. And so our natural reaction is to return it. Right. But when we start to do this work, when we start to look into how the mind works and how self-sabotage works, we realize that what we're doing is allowing somebody else's saboteurs to trigger our saboteurs and then putting ourselves in that mode when that is, as we mentioned from the beginning, a choice. And what I find most fascinating about this work and about our judge is that because it's been with us for so long, most of us don't realize that listening to that voice, following that voice, believing that voice is a choice.
And that's so good. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to leave it right there. Everyone out there, I want you to just kind of think about what Kristina just said, and we're going to come right back. Don't go anywhere. You want to stay right here because I guarantee you that there's some self-saboteurs you didn't even know you had. And we want to help you get to the bottom of it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and we are back. So I'm not going to delay this. I want to bring Kristina in because this is so good. So before we took a commercial break, you were mentioning that we have a choice. We have a choice to, and in the response of, right, you gave the example of if you came at me on the show, right, and with different energy, I have a choice in how I respond to that, right? Even though automatically, right, people automatically think to, you know, kind of go back at the person with the same type of energy. But let's talk about how you help people shift that way of thinking.
Sure. So this first step that we're talking about here, the awareness step is number one. You can't change what you're not aware of, right? So and then the second step, of course, is that you have to want to do something about it. Any form of change, you know, that we wish to create in our lives, you know, if we don't actually want to do the work, if we're not actually interested in doing, we talk about it a lot, like, oh, I wish I felt better. You talk so much about those those conscious choices to live a healthier life, to make healthier choices, to take care of yourself in so much of the work that you do with others. And those are all like, if I'm not even aware of how I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not going to be able to do that. And if I'm like, I want to be better, but I'm not willing to do the work. I'm not really interested in that. Then we're kind of at a standstill. So once we're aware, and that awareness, as we talked about, is, hey, does life feel amazing? At the end of the day, do I say, hey, this was a great day? Yeah. It doesn't mean that we don't have challenges, or we have things that, that come in that are difficult for us to deal with, or that we have some of these emotions like frustration or anxiety, shame, blame, guilt. That's natural and normal. But if we don't stay there, if we're able to move out of that, then at the end of the day, we should be able to say, hey, no, today was a great day. Even if we had adversity, even if we had challenges, today was a great day. But what ends up happening most of the time is that people end up latching on to the bad. Again, survivor brain says, hey, pay attention to these bad things because we want to make sure you don't do those again. So the judge comes in and says, I'm going to keep reminding you, hey, remember that time you screwed up on the podcast? Hey, remember that time that you misspoke? Remember that time that you sent that email with misspelled words? It's going to keep telling you these things because survival wise, it thinks it's helping you to do well, to not do those things again. But what it's really doing is causing you to feel stressed. It's causing you to feel anxious. It's causing you to feel ashamed, frustrated. So once we're aware of this, once we see the patterns, once we decide, hey, I don't want to live like this. This is a choice. I don't have to live like this. This is a choice. I don't want to live like that. I want to do something about it. Then we get into doing the work that's actually going to shift and create new neural pathways in your mind, because these old beliefs, these old patterns, everything that we do that's a pattern or a belief like that is something that creates a neural pathway. And the more we travel it, think about like a path in the woods. The more you travel it, the smoother it gets, the easier it gets. And you would pick that if you were in the woods and you saw a very clear path, and over here you saw a giant thicket with a bunch of weeds and all kinds of vines and all kinds of trees. You're not going to say, hey, I think I'll go over there. That looks great. Right. This is exactly what your brain does. Your brain's like, I'm not going over there to your new idea. I'm going down this thing right here. This says we should feel bad. This says we should beat ourselves up for what we did today. We're going to take that path. So what we have to do is, once we acknowledge that something's going on in there that isn't the path we want to be taking, it isn't the neural pathway that we want to be reinforcing anymore, we have to start going through the process of building a new one. And that almost always comes from compassion first. Hey, it's okay. It's okay that I see that I've been giving myself a hard time. I see that I've been judging myself harshly. I see that I have been, self-inducing stress, putting pressure on myself, getting angry, paying attention to things outside of me of which I have no control over, and allowing that to rule my energy. I can understand why you would be upset about that, or why you would feel hard about that, as opposed to saying, yep, there you are again. There you are going down that neural pathway again. There you are. No, that's just more judge. So what we're actually doing is reinforcing the judge, not making the shift. So we've got to plumb to that place of compassion where you realize, you know what? It's okay that we did that. We didn't know any better at the time. We weren't aware of what we were doing. Now we are. So we have another choice. So the way through the positive intelligence work that I do, the way that we do that is through sensory focus experience. And this has been proven through work, with neuroscience. There are parts of the brain that get activated when we are in self-sabotage, the parts that are connected to these negative emotions. The parts that are connected to things like empathy, exploration, navigation, creativity, innovation. These things are different parts of the brain. And this is where I always get my smart people, because my smart people want to say, oh, I'm in this part of the brain. I need to be in this part of the brain. Go over there. And then they get mad. Yes. Then they get mad because they're like, oh, well, I don't understand. I don't understand why I can't just, you're telling me just be happy. I can't just be happy. And they get frustrated because they think they can teleport in their brain. And that's not how it works. That would be cool, but it's not how it works. We got to travel, even though it's quick, we're traveling a neural pathway to get to another part of the brain. So we have to move away from those parts that we're reinforcing that are negative and allow ourselves the opportunity to choose another choice point to go towards these other parts of the mind that are in the areas that we wish to be in, that give us the feelings that we wish to have. So we do these sensory focus exercises. So for example, we can do one together. You know, we typically we do these, not all of them, but many of them we do with our eyes closed, simply because it allows you to focus a little bit better. You can do it with your eyes closed or put your eyes down softly. But one of these would be to just like take your hands and gently rub the fingertips of one hand against the fingertips and palm of the other with such attention that you can feel all the sensations of touch on that hand. Notice all the little ridges. Notice the temperature of each hand. Notice where the temperature changes. See if you can feel the ridges of your fingertips from one finger to another. Notice the pressure, what that feels like. Okay, so within those few seconds, what you weren't thinking about was the COVID vaccine. What you weren't thinking about was what happened at work today. What you weren't thinking about is what you need to do tomorrow. What you weren't thinking about is what frustrated you earlier. Now, all those things are still in our world, but by taking ourselves into an attentional focus on something sensory related, we've given ourselves the opportunity to move out of judgment towards any of those things that we were attached to or having an emotion about. And now we're on kind of like a neutral ground. Now we have a choice. And it's much easier from this place to say, okay, what would I like to consciously choose from here? I'm the co-creator of my own reality. I can choose whether this is a frustrating experience for me or an experience that I could be curious about, or if this is something that I could feel constricted about, or whether I can feel I can navigate this from a place of flow. So I get to choose that. So now I'm in a place where I can make a choice, as opposed to being so wrapped up in those emotions that I don't feel like I can see anything else. I can't see a way out of that. So we got to get out of that. And then once we're out of that for a minute, you know, then we can choose and start to, I think this is the most important thing. And this will tie into what you were speaking about at the beginning of the show with doing research. I always recommend asking questions from a place of curiosity. So the more we ask and the less we tell, the easier it is for us to get into what we call in that positive intelligence work, the sage brain, the sage part of ourselves, the part that's willing to listen, the part that's willing to be open-minded, the part that's willing to read and receive information without making a judgment before we even have the information, simply because we put a label on someone.
And you just mentioned that, like that happens all too often, right? When we pass judgment on things before we even really have a good source of information, right? So I love that you said that. I just wanted to mention something else too, as we were going through that exercise, which I love, by the way. I've never done that before, but it was so peaceful, for one. Number two, it just made me feel like, you know, just be present, right? As I was listening to the sound of your voice, it just made me be present. And I can remember, like, after having breast cancer and my hospital, I had never done anything like meditation or anything like that pre-cancer. And the hospital had like this they offered meditation as just a part of the program that I was going through with them, as I was going through deciding what I wanted to do with everything, with all the information that I had. But I had never done meditation before. So it was really hard for me back then to really focus and really be present in the moment. And as they played a tape, and the woman's voice I started laughing because it was fear of the unknown, I guess.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's normal.
And I started laughing. But when we did that exercise this evening, I'm in a different place in my life now too, but I was so present. It was almost even hard to focus on the show because I'm like, I can feel like everything in my hand right now. And it was so peaceful and I was so present. So I want to tell everybody, please try that because it worked just watching us on screen, but it worked. It worked.
You can do that. There's many different ways that we can do that. And the thing that makes this a little different than something like meditation, even though it feels kind of similar in practice, is that these types of exercises are things that you can do in meetings, as you're walking down the street. You know, like I could use a visual sensory focus where I'm really focusing on your eyes and really focusing on looking at, the distinct color and shape of your eyes, focusing on the sound of your voice and really tuning into the articulation and senses of your voice, as opposed to with meditation. Most people think they need to go away and be in a room by themselves and have a quiet space, in order to do that process. And we don't always have that luxury. We can't be at work in the middle of a meeting and feel kind of agitated and be like, y'all, we need to stop right now because I got to go over here. Right. Let's all just take a moment. Like we don't have the luxury of those kinds of experiences all the time. And this can be done in as quick as 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, you can shift yourself into that place of sensory focus. And you're absolutely right. And I will point this out because it's important to say. This takes practice because most of us are very weak when it comes to self-command of the mind. And if you want to test yourself, I'll tell you how to do it. Pick a topic like Apple. Okay. And set a little timer on your phone and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to think about Apple for the next 2 minutes. Go. All right. And you will probably spend about 6 or 7 seconds, maybe a little longer, thinking about Apple. And then you're going to start thinking about that sound you hear outside, that guy that said something that made you upset earlier today, what you're doing tomorrow. And these things that's very normal. So our brain is used to constantly shifting and doing all these things. So if that happens, what we want to do, and this is the equivalent to our reps that we would do at the gym or anything else, we just come back to whatever the sensory focus was. So if you notice that people think like, oh, I'm smart, so of course I'll be able to focus. I'm a very focused person. Okay. However, when you start to actually realize what self-command means and how we do that in the mind, most people realize that it's a quote unquote muscle that is very, very weak. And this is why meditation can be challenging for a lot of people. This is why sensory focus, present moment, mindfulness can be challenging for a lot of people because that brain wants to go over here, go over there, do this. And so we just have to gently guide it back. We don't get upset about it because that's activating the judge. Right? We just want to guide it back and say, hey, be here. My favorite phrase for this is be here now. Be here now. That. Yeah, just come on back over here. Hey, come on. We were paying attention to our breathing. We were paying attention to our palm, whatever it is. Come back over here. Be here now. And so I've been doing this for quite a while, and my mind still goes all over the place. And you just bring it back. And that actually is the work. The work isn't, for all my hyperachievers out there, shout out, I get you. I understand you very well. For all the people who think the work is being able to stay focused. That's actually not the work. The work is the bringing yourself back. Work is noticing that you're drifting away and bringing yourself back. That's what's actually going to help build the neural pathway. Not being perfect, not doing it right without any mistakes. That's actually not significant. What's significant is the constant reinforcing of the pattern of coming back into self-command.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I wish we could go on forever. It's the practice though, right?
It is the practice.
And you know, I was having a conversation with my son this morning and I was talking to him about, you know, what really matters is what you choose to do every day. It's not, you know, trying to look so far ahead into the future. Yeah, it's great to plan. It's great to have goals. It's great to do all of that. But you won't get there if you don't do something about it each day. So focus on what you can do today.
And that's what that, you know, what you were talking about having that goal. We were talking about, you know, like, oh, the goal is what matters.
Yeah.
And so what about between now and then?
Exactly.
That's the premise of what I enjoy doing with people, you know, saying, hey, we can have an amazing life right now.
Yeah.
We can have fun right. We don't need to wait until we reach that goal, accomplish that goal, get that amount of money, get that job, you know, have whatever it is that we're asking for. Those are all wonderful things, but we don't need to wait for those to feel joy. Yeah. We don't need to wait for those to have an incredible existence every single moment of every single day leading up to that.
Absolutely. I want to, before we close the show, I want to share this with everyone because this beautiful woman has decided that you can get a free success audit right here with her. You just have to click on that QR code. It'll take you to her website. You can sign up for your free audit. So make sure that you do that. We want you to get, you know, what you need. She can give you the tools that you need to be able to practice how to bring yourself back so that you can get to everything else that it is that you want to accomplish, right? Because that's really what this is about, you know, who you want to be, how you want to be in this world, and the things that you want to do, right? Yes. That's what it's all about. So click the QR code and get in touch with her. I also wanted to just give you the website as well so that you will have that also. It's www.Driskill.com. You make sure that you get in touch with Chris and get that inner judge in check. That's what I'm going to say, because it won't leave you, but get it in check.
Yeah, we can make that voice. We can make that voice quieter, right? We don't need to get rid of it. That's exactly. Part of who we are, but we can certainly make it quieter and realize it's our choice, not the judges.
Absolutely. So I thank you, Chris, for being here. We love you all out there. Make sure that you stay tuned with us right here on the Whole Living Show at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will see you next Wednesday. Take care.